So here's our task, to talk about the 20th anniversary of the GLBTQRC.
That's a very large task, 20 years. That's 80 in the queer movement years.
Huh?
You know, sort of like dog years.
Yeah, that's why we got invited to do it. We're old dogs.
Been around long enough to have lived a lot of this history.
And it has been an extraordinary history. Things change so fast, we can hardly even keep up with the center's name.
Yeah, we went from the GLB Center
To the GLBT Center,
to the GLBTQ Resource Center,
all in an effort to expand our vision of what queer is,
and to enact the values of inclusiveness and equality, some of the founding values of the center.
and to insist on the liberating move of marginalized people to name themselves.
Which is why, of course, knowing our history is so critical.
It's hard to build a future on no history, sort of like quicksand.
History is our social glue. It ties us to our own group, and it helps us to figure out our place in the world.
And to envision where we want to go.
History also shows us we're not alone in our determination to create social change.
To really understand the history of the center, we need to understand the conditions that gave rise to the center.
Like back in 1960 in Farrand Hall, an RA named Minnie was with her lover in her bedroom when the hall director let herself into Minnie's room. That was the end of Minnie's RA job.
That was the end of Minnie in Boulder. The Dean of Women met with Minnie and informed her that she could go on to graduate. However, she could not live in the dorm. In fact, she would have to live outside of Boulder. True story.
Oh yeah. And she had to see a psychiatrist at the Health Sciences Center, presumably for the cure.
Now, Minnie complied with most of those demands. She left her job and her home at Farrand Hall. She moved to Denver and saw a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist basically told Minnie that she was fine the way she was.
No cure, eh? Well, 2 out of 3, not bad. Whatever happened to Minnie?
She's retired. She lives in Longmont with her partner of many decades.
There's such a crucial theme of resilience in our history.
Then, too, things on campus weren't always quite that bad.
True. Did you know that less than a year after Stonewall, that CU had a student group called the Boulder Gay Liberation Front?
The group was made up of both students and community members, had student group status, received student fees, and had an office right here in the UMC.
Well, actually GLF had a couple of offices in the UMC. The first one was on the ground level, and there were occasional problems like graffiti and a rock through the window.
The UMC and GLF together decided it might be a good idea for them to move to an office downstairs.
One that didn't have a lot of attention to those near the fountain, but it was a whole lot bigger.
In 1973, some of the GLF folks persuaded the Boulder mayor, Penfield Tate, to sponsor an amendment to Boulder's Human Rights Ordinance. That amendment would cover sexual orientation.
It was a very big deal. When it went to the voters, it was the first municipal election on gay rights in the entire United States. Sadly, Boulder voters voted against covering sexual orientation by a huge margin.
Still, you can't keep a good movement down. The next year, the Boulder County Clerk, a woman named Clela Rorix, issued valid marriage licenses to 6 same-sex couples before the Colorado Attorney General said she couldn't issue anymore.
That was back in 1974. That seems like last year. Clela, Hillary.
But back to CU specifically. In 1976, CU had a credit class on sexual orientation developed and taught by a graduate student and an undergraduate student.
That's just but one of a long series of initiatives undertaken by students on this campus.
And in 1987, CU student Kat Morgan decided it was about time that Boulder voters had a chance to correct their earlier decision in excluding sexual orientation in the city's Human Rights Ordinance.
Yes, city and university folks worked together to get it done this time. It was the first time in the country that a municipality actually voted to extend anti-discrimination rights to LGBT people.
All the while, a staff and faculty group called Campus Lambda was meeting off campus on a regular basis.
And on campus at the Counseling Center, now known as CAPS, was hosting a series of les-bi-gay noon-hour lectures for the campus.
And each year, an ad hoc faculty and staff group put together day and 2-day-long symposia featuring nationally known queer movers and shakers.
Yeah, then CU President Judith Albino introduced one of them, Alan Barabee. She was wearing a bulletproof vest due to threats against the symposium.
That's right, that was in 1992 during the turmoil around Amendment 2.
Right, Amendment 2. The popularly initiated Colorado referendum that would have legalized discrimination against LGBT people.
Before the election, it divided the state.
And CU was no stranger to the roiling controversy.
Then football coach Bill McCartney violated President Albino's explicit rule about speaking out on the amendment while operating in an official capacity.
He spoke from the podium, the CU podium, wearing CU insignia, and said homosexuality was an abomination unto God Almighty.
He flouted Albino's rules, and he got away with it.
Well, Coach Mack was a member of the board of Colorado for Family Values.
And his paycheck was a lot bigger than the CU president.